I am not a game developer, but in my efforts to learn the skills to become one, I stumbled upon this 20 games challenge, where there's more than 20 games and you're tasked with making at least 10. The point is to learn game dev by copying games of increasing complexity and scope, without just following tutorials. It's broken into 10 sets of games. You're supposed to pick one out of the 2 or 3 games in each set to make. Each has a list of features that should be included, as well as some that go above and beyond. That said, I think that more practice would be beneficial for me, so I'm going through all the games and completing all the stretch goals. At least for now. Not sure I'll stick with that, but it wouldn't hurt to get more experience with the basic things before moving on to more advanced projects. I'm uploading it all to itch as one project, so you can check it out yourself if you want, link in the description of course. So far I finished Game 1 and Game 2, for a total of 4 games. First, I made Pong. It's Pong. Ball goes one of 4 random directions to start, and bounce. Opponent follows the ball, but eventually fails. Scores are in the middle, not much to say. You may notice the ball is square. I tried having the ball be round at first, as well as the ends of the paddles. However, whenever the ball hit the end of a paddle, it often bounced at an odd angle that, depending on if it goes more horizontal or vertical, would make the game either much faster and difficult, or slow it to a crawl. Sometimes it would even behave kinda weirdly. By the way, don't let me forget to record while I work. If I did that, I wouldn't have to recreate these things. Anyway, making things flat mostly solved that issue without having to actually think of better ways to handle things. Finally, it wouldn't be complete without sound effects, so I took a guess at how they work, thinking it'd use the same type of node as music does, but use code to play the sound effect when it's needed. My guess was correct, meaning I managed to learn something all on my own. With this newfound knowledge of sound effects, I finished this game and moved on to the other Game 1. Flappy Bird. Now, this actually wasn't my first time making Flappy Bird. Game Maker's Toolkit released a tutorial for Unity about a year ago, and though it was a pretty good tutorial, I didn't actually continue to learn Unity after following it. In part due to the fact that I didn't really learn it to begin with, since following a tutorial like this isn't quite the same as learning, you know? I would have needed to actually do some projects on my own to really develop the knowledge, as I have been recently in learning Godot, particularly with this very 20 games challenge thing. Anyway, the game needed a bird to be Flappy, and my pixel art skills don't exist yet. So I downloaded some Kenny assets, which I also use for Pong sound effects, threw them $20 because the public domain is super important, and picked something that didn't clash with the black and white theme I carried over from Pong. Set up a pipe spawning system, gave the player a tiny hitbox, created a game over screen, threw in some random squares in the background for visual interest, bada bing, bada boom. I've got another game done, and uploaded this project to itch. With Game 1 done, I moved on to Game 2, starting with Breakout. I was able to recycle code from both previous games for this, basically only needing to add a grid of bricks to break, a life system, and make it so you could actually control the ball a little, which I probably should have done for Pong as well. Maybe I will at some point. The way I implemented the grid, I can adjust the number of rows and columns, with block placement and color handled in a loop. Now, this could have been used for multiple levels, perhaps with increasing difficulty, interesting patterns maybe, or simply just endless gameplay. But instead, I just have text that says, "You win," when you break all the bricks. Kinda underwhelming. I'm thinking about changing that at some point, though for now, I think I'm just gonna leave it as is, for the sake of having it done, you know? As for how I handled lives, specifically how the lives are displayed, it's just 3 sprites with a variable attached that dictates the minimum lives needed for it to be visible. I think it would be preferable to have the sprites be spawned and aligned more dynamically, perhaps having like a heart scene or something that gets added in a loop. But this way was simple enough, and thus it was the path I took. Once I had this game done, I uploaded the updated version of the project to itch, and decided to try making a devlog on the site, just to see how that works. It turned out to get significantly more views than the project itself. Neat. Anyway, it was time to move on to the next game 2. A Jetpack Joyride clone. By coincidence, I happened to see a video from the designer just before starting this challenge. So it's fresh in my mind just how much effort went into making that game good. And in turn, how much work it would take to get everything fine-tuned and all that. It's simple enough to change the controls from Flappy Bird style if action just pressed set velocity to if action pressed add velocity, but to make it feel right is another matter entirely. I figured it'd be a better use of my time to just get functional rather than perfect, though I might go back and refine the controls further. I had to change how collision works. I couldn't get the player character to detect collisions with obstacles if it's already touching the floor or ceiling, so now collision detection is the obstacle's job. As for the obstacles, pipes were easy enough to reuse, but variety is the spice of life, so I add bombs that appear in various patterns, and a door that opens or closes if you shoot a box, giving the guns purpose. Overall, not the most engaging obstacles, but it's less repetitive than it could be, I suppose. Also, behold, some particle effects to give the bullets, or fireballs I guess, some extra flair. Much like with sound effects, I kinda just improvised and it worked out well enough. Now I've got a rough idea of how to use them, though I will be looking further into how they work. I could probably use particle effects to replace random squares in the background. Might be the better way of handling that. With that, game 2 is done, for a total of 4 games so far. So that's what I've gotten done so far. I've been learning stuff faster than I expected, to be honest, though I'm only scratching the surface of how some things work. Looking ahead, there's 3 games per set for the next few sets, and I'm gonna have to go beyond the simplicity of these previous games. I'll have to delve further into these things I've started to learn, and learn new things as well, like maybe pixel art? On top of that, there's definitely room to improve the games I've made so far. If you want to play them and leave feedback, that'd be great. Anyway, with so much left to do, I better get back to work. Till next time.